Hey all, RPD back with the mastering breakdown for Madi, Jade, Hippocampus in retrograde. Hey, that kind of rhymes. And yes, we've reached the 5th track. It is the hardest to pronounce. It is... Hold on, let me do an edit here so I get it right for sure. Norepinephrine. I messed it up. Norepinephrine. That's pretty good. That's the best I can do. You can just call it noradrenaline or track 5, I guess. See, we've got some automation here, so I think that might be the first thing that I try to show. But let's have a listen first. Okay, so let's skip ahead to this like middle section here, and we're gonna see what's going on. Let's have a listen. So you can see this EQ point here. If we go back, this EQ point here is turning on just for that middle section and then turning off again. So we're boosting about 1.3, well, exactly 1.3 decibels of 724.7 hertz to be very, very precise. So yeah, let's, we can do that thing where we exaggerate it, and let's hear what happens. So you start to hear like a lot of point coming out on the snare when you boost it a lot, but there's also a lot, like the top end of the kick is living there, and sort of the presence of the bass, and so it's just generally sort of, for me, what it's doing is there's a bit of a tension and release thing here between the main part and between the middle section. So that's just sort of upping the tension a little bit. So then when it goes back to the first section again and the EQ turns off, you feel you feel the tension release and a relax. So other than that, let's see what the first plugin we have up is. And it's the Shadow Hills compressor. Again, like I've been doing this, the top track is the track I worked on, the bottom track is the finished master. I don't mean it's from Finland, I mean it's the master and it's finished. But you can see there's a lot of spikes here, right? It's pretty dynamic. And I actually retained quite a bit of this. On. Right, so it's pretty subtle. It's not really moving the needle much. Only the biggest peaks are even going to move the needle a little tiny bit. And the mix is turned down to, so it's about like 50% dry, 50% wet signal. So it's a little bit subtle for sure, but it's definitely upping the intensity of the low end, the sustain of the low end, both the kick and the sustaining bass, the 808. So onward from there, we have some EQ. So let's listen to this one. So you can definitely hear a lot more point on the kick, you know, like sort of, I don't want to call it knock, but like just a higher up sort of, you could call it knock, I suppose. I don't know what to call it, but here, let's listen to some of these different points here. So this is the lowest one. Okay, let's go to the main part. So we're mostly hearing kick there around 72 hertz, but a little bit of the bass as well, unsurprisingly. So let's listen to this one here in the mid-range. So it's sort of that telephony radio type of sound there, but we're hearing a lot of the main, sort of the main vocals, if you want to call it that. The weird little guys that are singing. And then this top peak here. So a lot of the hi-hat, and then sort of the higher end of the vocals, and some of the snare as well. Then we're off to the UAD Pultec here, and we're boosting up a bit of 10 kilohertz. So let's listen to this one. And then we're off to the SSL saturator here. So I'm only mixing this in at about 19%. I felt like it definitely added something, but I really wanted to be careful about how much I was adding. So I was very careful with these settings. So you could hear the kick. The kick really lost something when I turned this off. There seemed to be all of a sudden a hole in the kick. And I don't mean like the hole you stick the mic in. Okay, that's a bad joke, whatever. So next up we have this little mastering trick here where we're expanding the low end in the center, in the middle signal, and then we're expanding the high end in the sides, in the left and right. So let's hear that. So you're definitely losing something on the low end, the sustain, the 808 sustaining bass without that on, right? It just doesn't feel as consistently intense. So then after that, we're just off to some limiting. So it's hitting about 1.52 decibels. Like if I'm not using this as my main limiter, then I usually like to hit it about that much, about 1.5 to 2. But I think it's hitting maybe quite a bit more than that, 4 or 5 decibels on some of the bigger peaks, because like I said before, it is pretty dynamic. And then the final maximizer here is the ozone once again. And so it's a similar story as we've seen on some of the previous ones. So the last thing before we wrap up that I want to show is just the ending here. So we're ending again with like a tape sort of, backspin DJ thing. As we saw on the first track, the frequency, I had the idea Madi was looking for some kind of way to end it because it just kind of ended abruptly. So I put in the tape stop effect that she liked when she heard it. And then from that, we go back and forth on the arrangements a little bit. And then she ended up putting the backspin, which was my original idea, actually. I said, we'll do some sort of like DJ backspin thing. So she ended up putting that in this. And then I did the tape stop effect, which is a little different, like a mechanical slowdown sort of thing. But yeah, it's an interesting way that we work, and it's unique for sure. So I wanted to highlight that. So yeah, we'll be back with track 6 tomorrow, Peculiar, and we'll see you then. See ya, folks.